I was talking to my girlfriend today, and she reminded me we were hiking in Lancaster at this desert reserve, which I highly recommend. And I remembered how much I loved basketball when I was 12 years old, right before puberty hit, and everybody grew like 8 inches, and I failed to do so. I would get to school like 2 hours early, hour and a half, 2 hours early, and just to practice free throws and three-pointers, and it was amazing, and I was unstoppable. I would hit these incredible streaks, and I was great at basketball until anybody else was on the court, and then I was very terrible. Which is where this story starts. I miraculously got put into a game, my 6th grade basketball. We were playing a fancy private school where Al Gore's son went. He was actually on the team. So there's me, Al Gore's son, my team, Secret Service agents, and Tipper Gore, and a bunch of other people. Most importantly, Rebecca Horn was in the stands, and she was my best friend, and also I was completely in love with her. So here's what went down. I'm running down the court. My teammate shoots me the ball. See how good I am at it? Passes me the ball. And I get it, and in my mind, I knew what was going to happen. I was going to dribble up the court, I was going to make a flawless layup, and everybody would cheer, and Tipper Gore would go like, that guy's presidential material, and Becca Horn would like fall in love with me. And what actually happened is I got the ball, and I dribbled it, and it hit my foot, and it ricocheted and hit my face, and then it went out of bounds. This was all very shitty. I warmed the bench for the rest of the game, and then the next day, and I still, to this day, don't know if there was an actual relationship between that game and what happened next, but Rebecca Horn, my friend who I was in love with, came up to me the next day in the library and told me she hated me and never wanted to speak to me again. Thank you. I'm fine now. So the rest of 6th grade, I kind of curled into a fetal position under the bleachers, watching other people play sports and feeling very sorry for myself. And by the end of the year, as summer was starting, I knew that I just needed to get out of town. And that is when I saw a brochure for this place that looked amazing called Camp Airy in Thurmont, Maryland. Check out. This brochure had, have you heard of it? It's a boys' camp. On this brochure, there was like this beautiful crystal blue pool and a bunch of guys who looked stunningly unathletic playing sports, and I was like, this place is for me, a band of other unathletic brothers. And I cajoled and I saved, and I got my parents to send me there. And within about 4 days, I realized that this place that looked like heaven was my own little slice of hell, because I managed to belly flop every time in that beautiful crystal pool, and every time we would play sports, it ended up that the other boys were some sort of like athletic mutants. They were so good. And I remember one point on the lacrosse field, we were all wearing helmets, and they would just like come up and for no reason just whap me with the lacrosse sticks on the head. It fucking sucked. It was horrible. And after about a week and a half, I decided this is not for me, and I started skipping all the sports things to go play Trivial Pursuit with one of the counselors. His name was George. He was older. He was like 40 years old, and he had tattered shorts, rarely wore a shirt, he looked like me, but plus 130 or so pounds, and he always won because he was older, but he had attained Yoda-like status at the camp, and so he'd win, and then he'd lean back and kind of like rub his belly and say, you know, I was crappy at sports too, Kass. Look how I turned out. You're going to be fine. Like, not super comforting. So I was going to be there for 4 weeks. After 2 weeks, I resigned myself that this was not going to be fun. This was going to be another 2 weeks of losing a Trivial Pursuit and getting bullied a bit by my cabin mates, and that's when everything shifted. Because I don't know if you've ever been to sleepaway camp, you may know that there's a tradition called care packages where your family, in order to convince you that they haven't forgotten you, they send you, packages of crap, like candy, whatever. After 2 weeks, everybody in my cabin had gotten one. I hadn't, because my parents are mean. But on this day, I got back, and there was this huge box on my bunk, bigger than anybody else has been. And it was from my parents, and I immediately had visions of like comic books and candy, and everybody was like gathered around, and they were wondering what was in it. I was suddenly like an object of admiration. And I opened the box, and on top of it, there was a single bag of Twizzlers lying on top of a vast pile of packing popcorn. I know. And on the Twizzlers, there was a note that said, "Enjoy," with a smiley face in the O. And that was it. And I looked at that and I went, are you fucking kidding me? I remember sweating. I could hear my cabin mates starting to laugh at me and then saying, your mom doesn't love you. And then I remembered I flashed to a conversation I'd had with my parents on the way up there. My mom had asked me, well, what do you want in a care package? And I just offhand said, a package of Twizzlers and a Playboy, I don't care. No way would they do that, right? So I take the Twizzlers, I set them aside, and I just kind of like nonchalantly, I'm like reaching down through the packing popcorn, and my hand hits like the edge of a rectangular object covered in cellophane. And I draw it out slowly and kind of curve over just in case it is the Playboy. I don't want anybody to catch wind of it. And I look down, and Cindy Crawford is staring at me from that month's edition of Playboy. And I gasp, and suddenly the guys are all around me, and they see what it is, and they're trying to pry it away, and I'm backing away, and I'm holding on to the Playboy because I haven't even got a chance to spend any time with Cindy yet, and I know that they just want to take her away. And then suddenly I hear this voice say, what's going on here? And it's George. He's come to the rescue. He immediately susses out the situation. He says, Michael, come with me. And we go into his fancy, counselor's quarters, and he sits there, and I sit across from him, still holding the magazine to my chest. And he just looks at me. There's this silence for a moment, and he goes, can I have that? Can I rent it? And suddenly I realized that I had something that he didn't, and I had power in this situation. And I kind of relaxed a little bit, and I looked at him, and I just went, it's $1 for an hour. And he nodded, and he reaches into his grubby shorts, and he gets out a crumpled dollar, and he hands it to me, and I hand over the magazine, and I get up to go, and then I really exercise my power for the first time. I turn around, I look at him, and I just say, and I want it back in good condition. So I go out, and the guys are asking me, did he confiscate it to do it? And I don't tell them anything because I feel like maybe I shouldn't mention that he just rented porn from me. George got it back in good condition. The next day, another counselor came up, and he asked to rent it, by which I was sure he meant the Playboy, and I guess, sure. And then another one, and another one, and another one, and soon I had a waiting list for this thing, and I still hadn't gotten a chance to look at it. And I found out that there was no porn, shockingly, was allowed at this camp. So I actually had a corner on the camp area pornography distribution business. It's amazing. And as my stack of $1 bills grew, so did my confidence. And everybody started treating me better. I still wasn't playing sports, but they reserved a seat for me at lunch, and counselors were giving me high fives and shit. It was amazing. The end of camp was coming. And there was a dance with the sister camps called Camp Louise. These are the worst camp names ever. And I went to the dance. I'd been to one dance before, but I just kind of sat in the corner. I had big, thick glasses. They fell off my face. I didn't know how to talk to girls because I was the guy who dribbled the ball on his foot and it hit him in the... It was bad. But this time, I walked in with... Even my glasses were more confident. Like, they just stayed up on my nose. And I walked in, everybody's like giving me the up head nod. They're giving me high fives. And I sat in the corner because I still wasn't quite courageous enough to talk to girls. And this girl came up to me and introduced herself as Cookie, because that was her name. She had curly hair. She was 15, an older woman. I was 12. She had breasts. It's very exciting. And at one point, she held my hand, and she looked at me, and she said, can we go get sundaes? Which, in camp talk, means that, like, she's my girlfriend for the night. So we went to get sundaes, and she wanted, like, extra sprinkles, which cost a little more, but it didn't matter because I had this stack, so I, like, made it rain sprinkles on her. And we went to dance. She danced. I kind of wiggled self-consciously. And then the end of the night was coming. You could tell it was the end of the night because the song American Pie came on. She took me by the hand, and she leads me behind the barn, because, of course, the dance is in a barn. And there's, imagine, 100-foot-long wall, and at regular intervals, there's just, like, pubescent and prepubescent kids making out. And Cookie finds us a slot, and then I don't know what to do, so I look at her, and she just looks at me, and she says these words that are emblazoned into my soul forever. She said, I want to say goodbye to you the way a woman says goodbye to a man. And then she attacked me with her tongue. And I wasn't ready, so she like gobbled half my face, and then I got my tongue into it, and I realized I was having my first kiss, and it was a French kiss with an older woman with boobs, and it was amazing. And I wrapped my hand around her head like I'd seen in the movies, and she'd used a lot of Aquanet, and it just, everything got stuck, and it was horrible and wonderful. And I walked her back to her bus, and then I went up the hill back to my cabin, and all the guys were already there. And I realized that of all of them, all of those friggin' jocks and sports playings and lacrosse stick flinging assholes, I'm not bitter. I was the only one who had been behind the barn with a girl last night. I owed it all to an utter lack of athleticism, my parents' questionable choices, and a Playboy magazine that I never even got to read. Thank you.